off how you want to start.
Yeah, well, I can. I'll do a quick introduction, and if you can probably fill in the blanks, and then we'll just jump right into it. So yeah, so this is my friend Andrew Hotz. Andrew and I met a few years back in well, first over probably a video conference like this. We were working at Google, but in person in Cincinnati, because Andrew for a few years at Google was leading the relationship between Google and Procter & Gamble. And Wildfire, which was when we were acquired by Google, we were actively selling a deal cycle with Procter & Gamble and needed Andrew's help. And so he very graciously gave us a lot of his time and access to some of the key decision makers at Procter & Gamble. So if you know anything about Procter & Gamble, you know that they're the biggest advertiser on the planet. At the time that I was at Google, Google had about 70 people worldwide just selling to Procter & Gamble. And I mean, it's just a pretty huge relationship and a big organization. So a lot of moving pieces across different countries, different business units. But Andrew was one of the key people that was leading the relationship overall. So I thought it'd be great as we are working with bigger organizations and thinking about how to build executive relationships to hear from Andrew. And so I had prepared a few questions, but he's got some other things he can tell us, and feel free to jump in with any questions as they come.
Yeah, well, I'll give you guys a little background sort of beyond P&G, just to give you some context. So I currently head one of our media and entertainment teams, so I actually oversee the relationship now between NBC, Universal, and Google. So very similar to what I did with Procter & Gamble, now in a different area of business with media and entertainment, so helping them with their films, TV shows, and some of the other businesses. I work out in the LA office, that's where I am right now. Right before I went into the P&G role, I was actually in TV sales. Google, for a period of time, had a TV product where we were selling television airtime, much like we sell media through AdWords. So that's kind of at least my Google career arc. That's what I started in TV, moved from TV to the world's largest advertiser, P&G, and then to NBC Universal, sort of largest media partner, traditional media partner. And I will say though, I've been here for a little over 6 years, but that was actually my first true sales job. Starting at Google was my first true sales job. So I think I'm pretty good at sales, but I'm not a salesperson that has been doing this for 25 years. Actually, before I came from Google right from business school, before that I was actually in production. So I made movies and TV shows and commercials. I started my career at DreamWorks, animation, making cartoons. So I say that and I share that because I think a lot of what I picked up, which I would today consider sales skills that I use and that I impart to my team, were actually not acquired by being a salesperson. All of them were not. Some of them definitely were, and there's obviously a lot that was refined by being a salesperson, but I don't think you need to have a 15, 20-year history in sales to be a salesperson. I think it's understanding a couple of core elements and truths and looking at the world and situations and opportunities a little bit differently. That's what makes a great salesperson. So hopefully for anyone who's not a seasoned, lifelong salesperson, you may all be that. You may be like, crap, I wasted time in the wrong business. So anyway, so I can jump in. Do you want to kind of start walking through questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll start from the top. So as your resume speaks, you've been in the media sales business for a while. So I calculate about a decade. What are some of the key learnings you picked up? What are some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Yeah, so I jotted down a couple notes, but I'll try to kind of also go a little bit freeform. So I will say the one bit of information that I learned that has been most helpful in my career, and something that my very first boss taught me, this was actually not when I was in sales, but he told me, I was like 21, 22 years old or something, he had said to me, no one in your career is ever going to pay you to say no. And that is something this was when I was working at DreamWorks, I was in production. I have held this very close and followed this direction up until this point in my career, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. And he gave it in the context of, I'm in the the time, he was the executive producer, he's coming to me and saying, I need 20 elephants on set tomorrow. And it's not anyone's job that I employ to tell me, no, I can't have that. What everyone who works for me, it's their job to help me understand what I would need to do, what they would need to do, what others would need to do in order to deliver upon what I'm asking for. So he said at every level, even if you're the CEO of a company, you're not there to say no to your shareholders. You are there to understand what your shareholders in that case want, and what you would need yourself and what you would need others to deliver in order to make that a reality. So I think that's the most important bit of advice that I've gotten, which I think has helped me in sales, because it has given me a perspective of what my job actually is. My job is not to just go in and be very sort of definitive on what I'm trying to drive. It's to understand, how do I make possible what the client needs to happen. That's the biggest kind of headline of direction that I've gotten followed. Things that I've picked up along the way, whenever you can, solve the client's challenges, not your own. So I'm assuming you guys all have revenue targets and targets of quotas of some in some cases. Those quotas are not your client's problems. And so if you approach your business plan or whether they're quarterly or annual plans that you're trying to hit with the client, if you approach them from what are my goals that I need to hit, you will never be as successful as if you pivot that to what are the client's goals that I need to hit and how in turn will I hit mine. And so I'll give an example with my team. Whenever we put together, when we sit down for annual planning, we kind of refresh it quarterly. Whenever we sit down, we'll go through we all know what our big bets are as a company. I mean, it's Google, search, video, I mean, it's not anything that's too groundbreaking at what we need to drive. But where we are more effective in our partnership with our clients is translating that all into what is the business challenge for the client that we're looking to solve that maps back to the eventual goal that we have as a company. So, like when you see our business plans for my team, all of the sort of pillars and big bets are based on client goals. So I'll give you an example. So search, right? Instead of just saying, we need to drive however many tens of millions of dollars we need to drive in search every year, what we're saying is that we have a goal of capturing the most qualified audiences for our clients, right? So Universal Pictures wants to capture the most qualified moviegoers to send them to the theater. We're going to do that by selling them search. But the goal that we always refer back to is siloing the client's challenge of how do I find the most qualified users and get them into the theater. So think about that. Think about reframing everything and kind of do it until it's not awkward anymore. If you start to do it, you start to keep reframing everything you've been doing as client challenges. It will feel awkward at first. But I think with enough repetition, that will start to be how you think. So you'll be able to sit down in front of your clients and not start the conversation with, I have a great product to sell you, and knowing in the back of your head I need to sell you $10 million of this in order for me to get paid this quarter. But instead you're sitting down and saying, what's your challenge? Or I know your challenge is X, Y, and Z. Let's talk about how we're going to solve that together. And that's a sort of shift in your mindset. Other kind of tip I've learned is be helpful and expand your scope. So this is particularly true with Google. We have a lot of products. We have a lot of areas that I really am not, my job description doesn't have me touch, right? There's just the areas of the business that I have nothing to do with. But the most important thing for your clients and in developing that relationship with your clients is that they perceive you as someone who's helpful. So be prepared and be open to working outside of the scope of what your role is, even if that is going to be an investment in your time and potentially some of your resources in order to do so, because that's how you're going to be the go-to person that they pick up the phone and call whenever they have a challenge, if you're helpful. Going to the next on the list, relationships first, asks second. So no ask is going to be as successful if you don't have a solid footing on the relationship. So give yourself some time. Be very critical. Have I built the relationship to a place where it can withstand these big asks? And Doug will be able to tell you, I mean, we had some big asks success of P&G. We had some news that we had to deliver to P&G that was not great. We had some setbacks. Products don't always work as they should. Shit happens, right? But if you have that solid foundation of a relationship and you have worked as hard building that as you have building your pitches and developing an ask for your client, then you can weather all of those ups and downs that the business is inevitably going to put you through. And then the last, this is actually a bit of recent sort of sales training that one of my colleagues taught me last year. Sell what they want to buy. It sounds rather intuitive, but when you think about it, if client, if you have a particular product that the client's not interested in, but there's another product over here that they're really interested in, sell what they want to sell. Don't always feel like you have to swim upstream and try to convince them of this one product. If there's something else that they want to buy, start with that. Go to where their strengths are and figure out how to over time expand that, shift their focus over to what you want to sell over here. Challenges you face along the way, yes, that as well. Things don't always go well, so rebound quickly. I mean, there's nothing like a short, fast email to apologize, say, hey, we messed up, I messed up, something messed up, and just get over it. Try not to sweat it, try not to prolong it, just acknowledge it, apologize if necessary, and just move on quickly. And then it's a long game. Don't go for the quick wins. Try to understand where you need to let things go to sort of, lose the battle, win the war type of mentality.
Awesome, thanks, Andrew. So a lot of the advertisers you're working with now, you've worked with in the past, started as traditional advertisers, right? Big on TV, print. I'd say Google as an organization has led the way in digital and getting these companies to think about search and display and online display. We face some of the same challenges in mobile, right? Mobile is very new. In-app advertising is very new. What are some of the things that that you learned from being at Google of getting these advertisers to move more money into the channels that Google sells, and what are some of the big hurdles for that?
Yeah, so we had the benefit at Procter & Gamble, when I was working with Procter & Gamble, we actually hired a couple of their brand managers and they were on my team when I was working at P&G. So we had like deep institutional knowledge of how they actually think about us, Google and YouTube at the time, as their partners. And the biggest revelation to me was when the brand manager showed me the plan for a particular campaign. I think it was for Gillette or Old Spice, one of the two. And we were line number 46 on about 120 line media plan. And just thinking about, we are one line on an Excel spreadsheet of over 100 items long, and I want to take 2 hours out of their day, and I want to be able to propose a very complicated strategy where they're working across a lot of different formats and products and platforms, and we are one line item. So in your business, if you think about the clients you're trying to sell to, like media, the biggest sort of most summary goal, and then that's going to go down to the types of platforms that they could buy on, whether look at TV or digital. That's kind of the first sort of fork in the road. And then just follow digital. Now digital, I can think about video, I can think about social, I can think about search, I can think about display, other types of digital advertising. And then I'm going to go one layer deeper and say, okay, then that's either going to be mobile or desktop. And then one layer deeper, that's going to be sold programmatically, sold directly through a publisher, other different ways you can buy it through exchange, blah, blah, blah. That's where your business is right now. And so where you have to understand is you are and I'm not saying this to say, Liftoff doesn't have the shot or, isn't large, but you are a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of all of the media that they have to consider and look at when you're working with these large advertisers. How do you overcome that? And I don't have the answer for your business. I wish I could tell you straight up, and I'm sure this is kind of what you're developing, but go in sort of with the humbleness of, wow, if we get an hour meeting, if we get them to talk about our product in a way that somehow elevates us beyond the amount of share of mind that we actually are getting right now, that's a big win for us. And so what you have to think about is if you are that fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, how do I simplify my messaging and simplify my offering to something that they're going to remember and they're going to want to activate against. And I'm sure you have amazing technology. I'm sure you have a lot of different selling points that make sense of why Liftoff is a great proposition for a campaign. But you probably have, on a small side, you probably have 5 amazing selling propositions. If you're coming in and meeting with me and I'm the brand manager for Gillette, you probably have 5 amazing reasons why your business is the best for me as a brand manager. And you probably have a lot of research that proves why you are better than your competition. And you probably have a lot of product demos that show you how fabulous this product is that you work on. Am I going to take that all away when I am line number 46 on a 120 line media plan? And that's really hard. And so that the biggest challenge for shifting over to digital isn't just one of 2 chunks on the media plan. It's not traditional and digital. It's not 2 line items. So it's not shift from line A and put it in line B. It is, you want to shift from line A and all of the subsets of every channel and shift that to digital, which is 100 lists long of media properties, media publishers. And and a lot of times you just sort of get frozen by inertia of where do I actually shift those dollars, what do I do? And so the call to action for you guys is to think about simplifying your approach and being very realistic about, I know I have to overcome this additional challenge that I am one very small piece of their overall plan.
Great. So,
sorry, does that sound, I don't mean this to sound depressing, but
no.
We felt this way, we thought, God, we're YouTube. Like there must be like 2 items on the defense, probably TV and YouTube. Not the case at all. There's a lot of other places that they should be and need to be investing their media in order to actually get the audiences and the sales that they need to generate.
No, it's very helpful. So I'm getting a bit of an echo. That's better. So I saw you and your team shared with me when I was at Google the joint business plan that was created between Procter & Gamble and Google, and I thought it made a lasting impression, namely because you were selling into this company that was a huge company that was so bought in that they were willing to put on paper what their objectives were for over a long period of time with Google, and some pretty ambitious goals of how they're going to move massive amounts of energy and money into digital advertising, what they needed to change the business in order to do that. So could you share with us what was the origination of this collaboration? What went into it? What were some of the problems? And then, because I think we're starting to think about with some of our larger customers, how do we do something similar? Not necessarily create a joint business plan, but how do we get more buy-in from more parts of the organization so we can have a more effective relationship?
Yep. So the evolution of joint business plans, and Google's kind of gone through this wave, and it's still very they're still very prevalent in the large businesses that we work on, where because we have so many people working with different clients around the world and across different products, and because a lot of times on the client end we have people mapped to multiple people within Google and vice versa, we have Google people mapped to multiple clients, that there was not a cohesive direction. This actually, I think, Mark Richard, who's the CMO of the P&G, was very much an advocate of this at the time of, let's help everybody everywhere who works on the partnership between P&G and Google to get under the same, to sort of start heading that ship in the same direction and get into the same leadership. And so we had this idea that we would develop these joint business plans. And where the joint business plans were very successful was when they were very client focused. Again, back to my earlier point, but everything in terms of client solutions and not of your plans. And so the earliest business plans that we had, joint business plans that we had with PPG were probably a little bit, they didn't do exceptionally well, and they were probably a little bit too Google focused. Like, there were like, let's say 3 pillars of this JVP. The first pillar was, shift 10% of TV spend over to digital, right? That is great for Google. That's great for you too. Where it failed was it didn't really scale well within P&G. And so we learned over time, after having a couple bites of the apple to do these, that we were more successful when we would transition that and put that in front of clients first. So, engage with the millennial audiences on their preferred platform, as an example, right? So that would be kind of how we would shift from just talking about shifting 10% of TV to digital to actually putting it in the client store. So I will say GVPs are and can be and were very good in our relationship, but they're not always necessary. They are good when you have a lot of stakeholders at the client, when you have large teams within your own company or multi-person teams in your own company, and when there's a lot of layers of the client, which again, if you have ambitions and goals to go after these larger clients, you're going to deal with very layered organizations where you're going to find yourself talking in circles to 10, 20 different people to try to get one thing done. And so it's helpful if you have a consistent plan that basically can serve as the framework for almost every conversation. So that was the goal with these joint business plans, is to walk in and say, here are 3 fundamental goals that your company has outlined that are important in driving your business forward. You can quickly review them in the first meeting or 2, and then after that, you probably will remember them. And you could always get buy-in to say, do you agree that these 3 goals are important for your business right now? And they were broad goals. It's like engaging with new audiences. Of course, that's a reasonable goal. But it would at least allow you to start off that conversation with, we're all focused on the same thing here. I'm not going to try to sell you something that is going to try to be a deviation from what you're typically interested in. So they can be very good. They were very good. They brought us success. They can also, just to warn you guys, they can hold you back if you spend too much time focusing on the JVP and actually not selling against it. So there have been entire teams at Google that spend an entire year focusing on developing the plan and forget to actually sell anything against that plan. So avoid the pit of trying to perfect this business plan or go over so many iterations. And the client may even try to direct you that, let's keep going over this, let's make sure we get every word right. At some point, it's good enough. And it will evolve over the year, and it's only as effective as the work that actually comes out of it. A piece of paper that states the plan, I mean, it's a roadmap, right? It's not going to be what you follow to the people. And it's also challenging to get buy-in from everybody. So I think at some point you're going to need to understand and just get a gut feel of when enough buy-in is enough. So you're not going to get every person to say, that's exactly what I want and nothing more in terms of our joint business plan. We would always have people try to add on things, or there was this time period where we thought, oh, we're going to have the master joint business plan for P&G, and then every brand will have their own GVP, which point of the joint business plan, keep everybody focused if there's 20 different plans running around. So at some point, get it to where you're comfortable with. Don't spend too much time on it where you forget what your core job is, and don't spend too much time getting the buy-in. I'll also warn you that the JVPs, your client has to be deeply invested in you to successfully pull off a JVP. So again, you're line number 46 on that media plan, and you want your client to sit down with you over the next several months and develop this joint business plan and execute it over a year, you are going to have to get past that line number 46 spot. So think about that. Be realistic about, is this something? Do I have the relationship? Do I have the share of attention of this client to be able to do these joint business plans? That being said, you should and still always should have a plan. And whether or not the client agrees to it, whether or not the client ever sees that plan, just internally for you and how you guys communicate internally to management and to other people that you work with at the company that are joining your team, to always have that plan, always have structure, that's extremely important.
Great. Any questions?
Yeah, so you mentioned that your team had hired a couple brand managers from P&G, and so you effectively got a bit of insight into where you sat in that ranking that they had of media planning. If you didn't have that access to that, what in your mind is the best way to figure out where you stack rank, why you stack rank there, and what you could possibly do to kind of move up the ladder?
Good question. So I think that is a question that you can and should ask your agency partners, and I think most people would give you a fair answer on that, or a transparent enough answer on that. So if you were to ask your agency, say, hey, I know we are one of the many vendors that talk to you. Can you just give me a sense of how many vendors are on your plan? Because if they tell you, there are only 3 vendors on our plan, that's gonna be really tough sell, guys. If you say, hey, you're one of 50, that's looking a little better, and then you can say, all right, okay, in that 50, I know we're not 1 or 2, all right? Be very surprised if we're 1 or 2. What gets somebody into that higher tranche? Is it just the scale that they provide? Are they offering other value that would help them drive that business? So I think that the best way is just to ask about it. And I think the agency is probably your best place to go. Some of the other client direct will be able to tell you, and brand managers are pretty forthcoming about that, just to say, how many partners do you have in the plan? What helps you? Do you tier or classify the partners? What are the qualifications, or how do you think about who is in that top tier versus that bottom tier?
Cool. So I want to switch gears a tiny bit. You've had a lot of experience working with executives at the companies you're at now, companies you've worked previously, in terms of the clients. What do you think is important in terms of building and maintaining strong relationships with not necessarily the folks that are making the media buying execution decisions, but people that are higher up in the organization that are setting budgets and directing the strategy overall?
Yep. So one of the sayings they have at P&G that is really good saying actually is, what does help look like? Start as many conversations with the most senior people that you talk with that question. What does help look like to you? Again, you will develop that relationship by being helpful. And so ask them what help looks like, and work to deliver that. You can ask that a lot of different ways, but the clarity of just communicating, I'm here to help, what does it look like? People ask, what keeps you up at night? Or very specific, are you concerned about audiences shift to mobile and how, they're like leading questions. But keep it broad, keep it open-ended, and just understand what that help looks like, and be helpful and be smart how you respond to that. Also realize that you guys are concerned, and I'm in the same business, we're concerned with selling media, right? That is our concern. The executives that you work with at these larger companies are concerned about running a business. And this is where, like on my team, where, people who are either very junior, who've spent the entirety of their career selling media, always want to talk about media. And where they're not as successful in talking to executives at these plants, or when they are not realizing that their business, every business that you guys will work on, will extend far beyond media. And so you need to understand what are the things that they're focused on beyond media. How does media play a role in actually reaching this? Now, I'll give you an example. We met with the CMO of Universal Pictures yesterday, and to have him sit down for 2.5 hours and talk to us about the challenges a movie studio is facing today that were not there last year. And there were things that I had never thought of. Again, we tend to focus a lot on media. So to be able to step outside of that conversation and understand that there are real challenges with different populations just sort of not having a habit of going to the movie theater. Or there are different types of films, like, when's the last time anybody saw a drama movie in the theater? They're not making them anymore. And this is just from a business standpoint. They talked about sort of the return on investment you can get from a drama film that's not like an art house or an Academy Award winning or nominated movie versus an actual blockbuster. And so to be able to step back, think broadly about their business, not from a media angle, that's going to be so important when developing this relationship with the executives. Because what they're going to want to know is that if you are a partner that they can talk about the business with, not just talk about media with. So when you get in front of them, don't talk about media products. Don't get into the details of how you measure. Don't use internal lingo. We hired a guy from P&G actually to head up our global organization, and he would go through our sort of briefing documents or even own internal documents and cross out any Google lingo. Like if we had a product, let's say TrueView, for example. So TrueView is our ads on YouTube that have the skip button. TrueView is a brand name that we've created. It's great if you're a media buyer, but when you're talking to a CMO, to say the word TrueView for 90% of those CMOs, it's going to mean nothing to them. If you change TrueView to ads that you can skip, or skippable ads, that is something that's interesting, right? Because that they'll understand what you're talking about there. So you have to really think broad and take yourself out of your shoes as a media seller, as media you know very well. And so that's at the highest level. When you're working with some of the brand managers or the global brand managers, assistant brand managers, get to know what they're called upon. So it's pretty clear what your goals are, right? Revenue. They know when you walk into that meeting, they're going to assume that your goal in that conversation is to drive revenue. How many times do you know what their goal is? Do you really know what their goal is? A lot of times you're assuming, or you're going to say it's very broadly, just said, so I'm meeting with Tide, the Tide team. My goal is to sell a lot of Tide. Is that really their goal? And a lot of times you can develop some very false assumptions and be giving them recommendations that fall outside of that. As an example, we need for over 2 years, I'm embarrassed to say, we kept talking with all the brand managers at P&G about always on search, right? Because people are always searching for laundry detergent on their phones and on their computers, and therefore you should always be running search because those are always consumers that you can capture. And it makes sense, right? I mean, probably if you were selling search as a business, you'd probably think, yeah, that's probably a good way to make a lot of money if every day they're bidding on laundry detergent terms, brand terms like Tide. And we couldn't for the life of us figure out why they weren't all jumping at this and buying it. And finally, we had to stop and just really ask them. We've been talking about this for 2 years, and if you guys aren't shifting the budgets in this direction, it seems like a very realistic value proposition. Tell me, assistant brand manager, why are you not shifting your dollars here? Turns out they are comped and they are gold on sales performance only within the campaign period that they're running. So if they're running a Tide promotion July, August, September, they will look at the sales for July, August, September, and that is what will set that's their quota. That's what they will get paid out on, whether they're deemed a success or not. So in that case, they don't care about search spend from January to June. Even though, yes, that does help the bottom line in PG, that definitely does drive sales. Me as a brand manager, my goal is to drive the maximum number of sales I can through July, August, September. But you talking to me about always on search doesn't help me at all. And so again, I say that because you'll go in there, you will know very clearly what your goals are. You oftentimes won't know what their goals are. And so I think that's where you can ask them. And ask them the specifics. When you're talking with CPG, is it just sales in general? Sales in a specific time period, it sales of a certain product. We're trying to talk to them about, hey, the Olay brand should be marketing all these different brands during the summer. Well, we actually only are running a promotion for Olay with SPF 30, not Olay with SPF 15. So therefore, I don't care if SPF 15 sees a spike in search and a spike in demand. That's actually not what I'm talking about. And then the last one I made it a little bit earlier is know when and where to apply the detail. You guys, I'm sure you guys are extremely bright people. I'm sure you know your business inside and out. Just because you know it doesn't mean the executives who work with a client need to know. So you have to dial back how much you want to tell them that you're excited about the vision to know, and really scale that back to just the bare minimum. Have them asking questions to tease out more versus kind of puking it all out of them and getting all the information to them.
Cool. Do you like selling with agencies, to agencies?
Yeah.
That was kind of a tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. Loaded, yes.
So we do a lot of direct to advertiser sales. Definitely our preference. I think more and more there's performance ad agencies that are winning business, and so oftentimes we have a third party to work with. we all, sometimes we start with a relationship direct and we get an agency involved. We've also had situations where we're running with an agency and then the agency gets switched and we didn't have that direct relationship with the brand. So just interested to get your experience on how do you balance that direct relationship in the agency, and what are some successes you've found?
Yeah, so the reality is that, especially once you're working with these larger brands, you're going to be working with agencies. I think that is, I can't think of a huge brand that doesn't somebody work with an agency, that where you're going to be getting the majority of your budgets will go through the agency. So what you need to realize from the start is agencies have a business to run through, and they have goals, again, to that point of, you know what your goals are, hopefully now you know what the client's goals are. The agencies have goals too, and you have to, in a way, be respectful of them as well. And so I'm a glass half full optimistic person. So I think there is a way to meet your goals, the agency's goals, and the client's goals simultaneously, but you need to know what those goals are. And you need to know that a lot of it, when I've seen the relationship with agencies go off course, it's mostly because of emotional reasons, right? It's because they don't feel included, or they don't feel valued in the process, or they don't feel like you are helping them reach their goals. So it starts again with building that relationship with them. It's hard. I realize like the crap that agencies can put you through is tough. And I think to be able to take a step back and say, all right, your business goal is just as valid as my business goal. How do I stop thinking about these as being in conflict and start to figure out a way of what is going to meet your goal, what is going to meet our goal? And look, the reality of it, a lot of times the agencies, they need to prove their value, and they need to be seen as the smart, resourceful team that's bringing the client the opportunities. So helping empower them to do your bidding and get them to talk about your business, that's kind of how you help them meet their goals. And they want to feel like they're a vital process. No matter how much you feel on some days they are not a vital process, and I hear this all the time from my team, the agency, we could do all this without them, why do we have to work with them, why is they're holding us back? The reality is they are employed by our client. The client is spending good money to keep them in business, and so we need to make them look good, we need to make them look good. And a little bit of it is just sort of being a little bit humble and saying, okay, we're gonna maybe divert some of the attention and some of the reward and praise for this opportunity and this moment and shift that over to the agency. So always start with the relationship side of that, and then ask them what they need. So directly ask them, how do I get on this media plan? How do I get more on this media plan? What are the things that you're focused on that I can help bring to you and deliver? Again, it's how can I help you? How can I help you?
Any questions on agencies? All right. I think that'll do it for my questions, but I do want to open it up while we have Andrew for a few more minutes. Any questions?
Yeah, what is a tactic that you're using, Andrew, and I hope you can hear me, to like kind of land and expand for a company like P&G? Like, obviously you'll start with a certain type of contact, but then like how do you grow from there to grow the business?
Yeah, obviously having a success story helps. Sometimes that's possible. Like if you can get a campaign or you can show how something worked and sort of get them to be an advocate, and part of that is empowering. So if you're working with a brand manager of a particular brand, empower that brand manager to be your advocate and go tell their peers and speak on your behalf of how valuable this was to your business, your campaign. And try to think of it as it's not exclusively your work to scale that effort. You can also get them to do a bit of that work. The other thing which we did a lot on P&G is I kind of find that silver bullet that gets them every time. And so a little bit of a sort of a guess and check, I guess, model until we found that. And usually it was a data point or a way of telling a story that just nailed it. And so once we did that, a lot of times I see, maybe this is unique to Google, maybe this is digital companies, maybe this doesn't matter, I'm just probably wrong in my perception, but a lot of times we feel the need to change things arbitrarily and just kind of, if something works, we don't just stick with it and repeat it until it's completely dead. Repeat it until it's completely dead. If there is a data point that you have found successful, ad nauseum, just keep going back to that until you feel it's lost its effectiveness. A lot of times we try to reinvent ourselves too frequently, and we lose the things that have worked. I can tell you right now with my team, there are things that I know we did a year ago that were very successful that we have fallen out of practice of doing because maybe it's boring or maybe we're not being innovative and we're continuing to stick with work. But if you can show that there is a particular data point that in a meeting or two has been very successful, go to town with it. Repeat it as much as you possibly can. Get that in front of as many people as you can. It develops a consistency with what you're talking about, but also it's proven to work. Don't chuck it so quick.
Go ahead, Jim, question.
Yeah, so I was just going to go back to the topic around agencies. So obviously Doug mentioned we'd love to work direct. I'm sure you know that as well. Have you been in a situation where you've moved the relationship from an agency to kind of the brand directly? How did you do that? What are some learnings you might have taken away? Or if you haven't, what are some suggestions that you may have?
I haven't been in a position where we've moved it. I've been in the position where a client was moving to take things more in-house and be more direct with their buys. And it wasn't a great outcome for us, I'll tell you. Like it was, the grass is always greener. You think working with an agency is tough when they're standing in the way of your sales goal. Imagine when you're working with a client, they can be just as gnarly and just as bad. So I don't know if the solution is to work around an agency, because I don't know if the outcome is any better. For us, it wasn't. To be able to cut the agency out of the buying process and be able to sell media directly to the client was not, was not a better process than working with the agency. And I've also been in situations where the client has put us in weird relationships with the agency where I don't know if they're playing a bit of a game or whether they're just trying to not empower one team too much. But I would try to avoid it. And I would try, this business can be small, there's a lot of people that move around, but we just had an agency person that moved over and went to the client. So know that just being a helpful, resourceful, nice partner is something that is going to matter because you could likely be sitting across the table from the same person and they may be wearing the client hat next time and not the agency hat. So in terms of the transition and guiding, I don't have much direction or much advice there, but just know that don't try to actively get the agency out of the picture. I found that in my experience not to be the best outcome.
Thanks.
Just on the brand side, how important or not important has it been to have a lot of experience with the product, like hands-on, like you would use it, and could point to some really hyper-specific things that might impress somebody? Is that common at all when you're working with folks like that?
I think if it's natural to you and you use it, great. Like I wouldn't go out of my way to, go switch to, I don't use Old Spice, right? Okay, so I wouldn't go out of my way to be like, oh my god, I love Old Spice because it has notes of cedar and all of this. Like, that's not me. But you do use the product. Like I had a baby and we were using Pampers, and I can tell you everything about what I appreciate about Pampers because it was authentic. So it may seem like, oh, well, this should be great, it'll show that they're really invested in their product. They can see through it if it's not authentic. So, do I go see every movie that Universal Pictures launches? No, because some of them I don't think look very good. But the ones that I am passionate about, they know that when I do see them and I do tell them, hey, I thought this movie was great, that's an authentic response.
Cool.
I think though, what I will say is I do think you need to put yourself in their customer's shoes and understand that. So like, they would be very impressed, not if I'm saying like, oh, I use Gillette, right? But hey, I walked down the aisle of Gillette, the shaving aisle at Target, and I noticed these things. And I noticed that like, you guys have the majority of shelf space, but it actually looks like, Nivea is, and I saw them on the end cap, are you worried about Nivea? Like, then you're invested in their business. So I don't think you need to go so far as to be their product if it's not authentic. I'm talking about that. But get to where their customer is and show them that you're thinking like the customer about their business. And that is usually a little bit more impactful.
Great.
Hey Andrew, so going back to your topic on joint business plans, I would imagine that these are something that are probably with a company like P&G that's massive and has a lot of moving pieces are revisited, fairly frequently to understand how we're tracking along to achieve the goals that are part of the business plan. But I guess my question is like, how far do you let the tweaking of the goals go or the moving of the goals go before you kind of put your hands up and say, hey, is this really, are we really still on track to achieve what we were ultimately looking to achieve at the beginning? Like, is there a time when you kind of step in and you say, hey, I don't know if this is really going to point us in the right direction to achieve that goal, or is it always letting the client kind of dictate where they?
No, I think if you spent the time and the work to actually get the business plan to something that makes sense for both parties, right, yours and the client's, I think you have every right to be able to be a little bit aggressive, assertive in making sure that plan is delivered according to plan. Now, when we would have check-ins, we do monthly kind of investment and what they would call connections, which is like their media metrics dashboard. We would talk about that monthly. And then quarterly, we would sit down and actually talk about, again, revisit those high-level goals, understanding what progress we were making or we're not making against them. And I think you can set targets and set goals and push those forward and have them know, like, look, this was valuable for both of our businesses. So again, if you set the goals to be broad enough and actually very related to their business, usually a client's big business goals don't change from quarter to quarter. Like, so engaging with millennial audiences, if that is one of your pillars of your joint business plan, that probably isn't going to change from quarter to quarter. So then what you can talk about is like, has this been deprioritized, or why aren't we making the traction here? We've said that we were going to help you reach this goal by delivering insights on the millennial consumer. We've done that. We're not seeing the next step, which is to test creative for a millennial, making this all, but like test creative for a millennial audience. We haven't done that. So help us understand if we do think that this goal, again, was set to be broad, was set to not change every quarter, why are we getting stuck here? And so yeah, you can be flexible. I mean, if it is something that they just decide, hey, for some reason our product, it just doesn't resonate with millennials and we're going to scrap this plan, yeah, be a little bit flexible with it. But again, if you set them broad enough and you've done your work in properly vetting those up front, those shouldn't change that much.
Cool, thank you.
Just sounded like a really customer-centric approach and great to get your insights there. What's a good instance that you can think of where you really press the client to challenge them in a way maybe they haven't thought about?
There's a lot. Let's see. Where do we do this? So I'll give you an example. With NBC that we work with right now, they're of a firm belief that, and I'm not sharing any meeting secrets, I don't think so, but they're of a firm belief that being contextually relevant is the best place for them to be. So in our case, if you have American Ninja Warrior, it's kind of a sports-related show, that media is going to engage an audience more deeply and perform better if that's in front of some type of sports content online. So preceding a video on YouTube. because there's more sports fans at any given moment than people watching sports content. And engage with those people wherever they may be, not just when they're watching sports content. And there's actually real performance reasons why we think that doesn't actually pan out to be the best approach. If you love sports and you're about to watch sports content, you may be more irritated by the ad than if you're about to watch something else and all of a sudden you're delighted with a piece of sports content. That actually may be sort of an unexpected way to engage that audience. So we had to push back on this, and there was limit into, because NBC is a TV network, so they look to drive their impact over a very finite period of time, like down to a couple hours, right? The few hours leading up to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock when that show airs, they need to get as many impressions or as much media reach as they can in those 3 hours. So if you're only trying to find people who are looking at sports content between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m., you are limited in the scale that you can get there. And you're not going to get the scale necessary in order to drive the ratings that you need to drive at NBC. So this was something that we had to push back on. It was a bad business decision. It was also limiting our potential of what we would be doing on our platform. And so it wasn't, this was all the way up to the CMO felt that this was the way to go. And so we knew how they respond, what they responded to and what they didn't respond to. And having real data that showed them why this did work. So we had talked about these theories. We had tried to just kind of appeal to the gut of saying, if you were watching this, if you're a sports fan, you're about to watch sports content, you saw this ad, or you're gonna like that, that didn't ever work. And so what we had to do is sit down and say, look, we've actually analyzed this, and we show you a comparison of how efficiently you're driving things like awareness and consideration when you're contextually relevant, and then how much more efficient you're being when you're driving that against being audience relevant. And so, again, we did that because the customer-centered reason was that they needed to reach a large audience in a very specific period of time. And so we started with the approach of, we're not here to tell you your strategy sucks. We're here to tell you that we understand your goal, and we would be remiss if we wouldn't point out the fact that you're making decisions that are limiting your ability to reach that goal. And so this is all part of being helpful. We have the relationship, we have the trust, to where we're not just trying to sell you more media. Again, what we're always mapping back to is we're helping you solve your goal and control us in that.
It's great, thank you.
Awesome. All right, we're out of time. Andrew, thank you so much. It's been really helpful.
Of course. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Guys.
What's that?
I said good luck in your efforts, hopefully the next day or two, and I'm sure I will see you guys in hallways and passing, and definitely say hi if you ever run into me, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Sounds great. Thanks, Andrew. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.